Hello and welcome to this edition of World at War. My name is Mohammed Saleh. Iran and Israel are in a direct eyeball-to-eyeball confrontation. By assassinating Hamas's top political leader Ismail Haniyeh while he was in Tehran, Israel has made the already tenuous situation in West Asia that much more explosive. Ismail Haniyeh was a key interlocutor in the Gaza ceasefire talks, and by killing him, Tel Aviv has kicked the possibility of a ceasefire further away. Iran has been embarrassed because Ismail Haniyeh's assassination happened in Tehran. The security of the guest house where Ismail Haniyeh was staying was the responsibility of the elite Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. And if the source-based American reports are correct, that a covertly hidden bomb inside the guest house in Tehran was detonated to kill Ismail Haniyeh, what is clear as daylight is that the only way this could have been done is if the Israeli spy agency Mossad had managed to infiltrate into the ranks of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. What this also implies is that the security of even the topmost officials in Iran, which is the responsibility of the IRGC, is now suspect. Subsequent reports have indicated that the Israeli Mossad had hired agents from the Ansar al-Mahdi protection unit to place at least about 3 bombs in the guest house about 2 months ago. The original Mossad plan was to assassinate Ismail Haniyeh when he was in Tehran in the month of May for the funeral of the late President Ibrahim Raisi. In the span of the last fortnight, Israel has also bombed Yemen and Lebanon. On the 20th of July, Israel bombed the port city of Hodeidah, targeting a refinery and the city's electricity infrastructure, in which about 3 people were killed and 87 others were injured. On the 31st of July, just hours before the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh, Israel had bombed the Lebanese capital Beirut, in which a senior Hezbollah commander, Fuad Shukr, was killed. So what options does Iran have to hit back at Israel? To begin with, Iran could do something like what it did on the 13th of April, as a reprisal for Israel's bombing of Iran's embassy in Damascus, in which about 13 people were killed. Tehran had launched 300 missiles and drones after giving due warnings to Israel and its allies about the attack. 170 drones, 120 ballistic missiles and 30 cruise missiles were fired in an attack that lasted for well over 5 hours. The slow-moving Iranian missiles and drones were shot down by the United States, British, French and the Jordanian air forces that aided the Israeli air defense systems. Apparently, 99% of the slow-moving Iranian drones and missiles were intercepted. But even the Israeli media reported that 5 Iranian missiles struck the Nevatim airbase, while 4 other missiles struck the Negev airbase in the south. On the 19th of July, the Houthis had used a drone to strike bang in the heart of Tel Aviv after crossing a complex web of multi-layered Israeli air defense systems. 1 person was killed, while 10 others were injured. When the United States had assassinated Iran's top military general Qasem Soleimani while he was in Baghdad in January 2020, the Iranian response had come just 5 days later. Tehran had fired about 12 ballistic missiles at the American military bases in Iraq, which included the Al-Asad Air Base in the Anbar province and the air base in Erbil. This attack reportedly was the largest ballistic missile attack against the American forces in recent decades. Initially, the Americans had tried to downplay the seriousness of this incident by claiming that none of their service members were injured or killed. But later, the US Department of Defense conceded that 110 service members of the United States had suffered some traumatic brain injuries, predominantly concussions, and some of them were later awarded the Purple Heart, a military decoration that is given by the United States military to those who get wounded or killed during active service. When the Iranian top nuclear scientist Mohsen Fakhrizadeh was assassinated by Israel in a road ambush using an automated gun in November 2020, Iran had made some loud noises of revenge. But as part of a policy called strategic restraint, it chose not to hit back at Israel with force. There are a variety of options that Iran could exercise to avenge the killing of Ismail Haniyeh. But a military reprisal that would give Netanyahu the excuse to extend and expand his war in the Middle East would mean that Tehran would fall into Netanyahu's trap. In fact, Israel's top military leaders now openly are stating that Netanyahu does not appear to be interested in a deal to end the Gaza war. As Netanyahu currently faces serious charges of corruption, an end to the war in the Gaza Strip would also mean that the clock would begin ticking on his political career. The United States, which has a special relationship with the State of Israel that is said to be stronger than even the ironclad guarantees of the NATO military alliance, has fought and assisted Israel with weapons and intelligence in every single war that Israel has been involved in. In fact, even before any kind of an Iranian response, the United States has already begun moving its military assets, such as an aircraft carrier strike group, a fighter squadron, and additional warships to the assistance of the State of Israel. These are American military assets and American soldiers who are being deployed for the defense of Israel. It now remains to be seen whether Iran will respond with force and risk an all-out confrontation with the combined forces of Israel and the superpower, the United States of America, as Netanyahu has been planning for. Or will Iran choose to exercise the option of strategic restraint? Three young girls in the age group of 6 to 9 were stabbed to death by a 17-year-old in the tranquil seaside town of Southport in northwest England on the 29th of July. 10 others, including 5 girls and 2 adults, were grievously injured in the knife attack. Though the police have ruled out Monday's knife attack as a terror-related incident, false online rumors spread about the ethnicity of the suspect, fueling successive nights of protests and rioting in Southport and also in other cities, including in London. A 100-strong group, supporters who are said to be of far-right English Defence League, who had travelled from outside the area, threw bricks at a local mosque in Southport and set cars on fire late on Tuesday. 53 police officers were wounded in the attack, 8 of them seriously. The next evening, more than 100 people were arrested in central London as officers clashed with far-right protesters close to the Downing Street. Our next report gets you more details.
A Taylor Swift-themed summer holiday dance and yoga class in Southport, northwest England, turned macabre when a 17-year-old wielding a knife burst in, attacking the 24 children attending the holiday workshop. 7-year-old Elsie Stancombe, 6-year-old Bebe King, and 9-year-old Alice Da Silva Aguirre were fatally stabbed. 8 other children, 5 of whom are said to be critical, suffered knife wounds, whereas 2 adults who tried to protect the children were also critically hurt. The mood was solemn the next day, as a stream of well-wishers left flowers, dolls, cards, balloons, and stuffed toys at the growing shrine in Southport. In a show of support for all those affected by the tragedy, hundreds of people held a minute's silence for victims at a vigil in the center of the town.
Obviously, this is a horrific thing and it should never have happened, but to see everyone have come out here to lay flowers and tributes, I'm proud of how my community, born and raised in Southport, has come together in this tragedy and for this loss.
But tensions were running high following the attack, fueled by false online rumors that the suspect was an immigrant. Merseyside police, though, confirmed that the 17-year-old was in fact born in Cardiff, Wales to Rwandan parents and has no known links to Islam. The rumors were spread by the activists of the far-right English Defence League, an Islamophobic organization founded 15 years ago whose supporters have been linked to football hooliganism as well. Shortly after the vigil, 100 strong of these far-right activists who had traveled from outside the area set fire to vehicles, looted a store, and clashed with the police outside the local mosque in Southport. More than 50 officers were wounded in these violent clashes, with more than 24 taken to hospitals. The mayhem continued at a far-right demonstration to the next evening as a few hundred protesters hurled beer cans and flares near British Prime Minister Keir Starmer's residence on Downing Street in central London. The belligerent crowd was shouting, "Save our kids! We want our country back and stop the boats."
I want us to be heard. I want the government to do something. I want him to stop the boats, like everyone does. We're being flooded with fighting age men where, we can't, they're not even vetted. So, we don't know who these people are. If you can have immigration, do it properly.
On Thursday, the 17-year-old boy, whose name was withheld because of his age, was charged by the Merseyside police with 3 counts of murder, 10 counts of attempted murder, and possession of a bladed article. Following an emergency meeting with police chiefs at his Downing Street office the same day, Prime Minister Keir Starmer denounced the violence.
It's not protest, it's not legitimate, it's crime, violent disorder, an assault on the rule of law and the execution of justice. And so, on behalf of the British people, who expect their values and their security to be upheld, we will put a stop to it.
Prime Minister also warned social media companies that they must uphold laws around spreading incendiary misinformation. The message is loud and clear, but the question is, will United Kingdom learn a lesson or two from this deliberate, coordinated, violent far-right Islamophobic attack triggered by misinformation whipped online?
In a rare admission, the Malian army said on the 29th of July that it has suffered a large number of deaths during fighting in the north in the previous week. The admission came following the Tuareg rebels' claim of inflicting heavy losses in the clashes between the rebels and the Malian government forces between the 25th till the 27th of July. Noteworthy is the fact that the Malian government forces are augmented by fighters from Russia's Wagner group, who have also admitted on the same day of suffering heavy losses, including that of Commander Sergei Shevchenko. What's also interesting is that the Ukrainian intelligence agency is said to have played a key role in the deadly ambush of Russia's Wagner fighters. So has the Russia-Ukraine war now spilled onto the battlefields of Mali? Our next report gets you the details.
The Tuaregs are a semi-nomadic group scattered around the Sahara region in North and West Africa. They have a presence in Mali, Niger, Algeria, Libya, Burkina Faso, and Chad. Out of the 2 million Tuareg population, it is believed that 950,000 reside in Mali. The Republic of Mali has been wrestling with insecurity since 2012, when a revolt led by ethnic Tuaregs erupted in the north of the country. Now, in a major setback, the Malian army suffered heavy losses in armed clashes with Tuaregs rebels at the border town of Tinza Huaten in northern Mali, near the Algerian border between 25th July and 27th July. The Strategic Framework for the Defense of the People of Azawad, or CSP-DPA, which is an alliance of predominantly Tuareg separatists, claimed a major victory over the Malian army and its Russian allies following 3 days of intense combat. CSP-DPA's stated aim is independence of the Tuareg-oriented state Azawad. In an Al-Qaeda-linked group, Jamaat Nusrat al-Islam wal-Muslimin, or JNIM, also claimed involvement in defeating the Malian army and its Russian allies. Reportedly, JNIM shared ties with CSP-DPA's predecessor, but CSP has denied any collaboration with JNIM in the latest clashes. In what is being described as one of Russian mercenaries' worst defeats in Africa, at least 20 Wagner fighters were killed in the clashes, according to the Russian military bloggers affiliated with the Wagner group. Mali's military junta, which seized power in a 2020 coup, sought military and political assistance from Kremlin in the fight against separatist and jihadist forces. In return, the latter stood to gain political influence and resources, including access to 3 coal mines that could prove instrumental in funding its war in Ukraine. The military junta, however, has refuted claims of presence of Russian mercenaries, instead calling them to be instructors training local troops on how to handle Russian weapons. Ukraine, on the other hand, is believed to have provided the Tuaregs with crucial information which enabled a successful operation against Russian mercenaries. The latest clashes have highlighted how a new theatre of war is opening thousands of miles away from the front lines in Ukraine, with Kiev battling Moscow's influence in Africa by aiding opposing factions.
Venezuela, the oil-rich Latin American nation, was plunged into political crisis after incumbent President Nicholas Maduro was announced the victor in the July presidential elections. It was a result that defied pre-election polls and has drawn widespread global criticism. Thousands of people, in fact, descended onto the streets of capital Caracas and in other cities protesting the election result. According to Human Rights Watch, at least about 20 people have died in these protests, while more than 1,000 others have been incarcerated. Brazil, Mexico and Colombia have all called on Venezuela to release the full details of Sunday's election. Meanwhile, in retaliation to the election-related criticism, Venezuela has expelled the diplomats of Argentina, Chile, Costa Rica, Panama, the Dominican Republic and Uruguay. On Friday, Argentina and Uruguay recognized the opposition leader Edmundo Gonzalez as the winner barely hours after the American Secretary of State Anthony Blinken claimed that overwhelming evidence showed that Gonzalez had defeated Maduro. Additionally, the opposition leader Maria Corina Machado has alleged that the political opposition movement's headquarters in Caracas was vandalized by masked men who were carrying guns. So what is happening at this moment in Venezuela? Our next report gets you the details.
Nicholas Maduro has led Venezuela since 2013 after the death of his mentor and predecessor Hugo Chavez. But his reign has been plagued by controversies. Not only has Maduro been accused of locking up critics and harassing opponents, he has presided over a GDP drop of 80% that pushed more than 7 million of once wealthy Venezuela's 30 million citizens to emigrate. His previous re-election in 2018 was rejected by dozens of Latin American and other countries, including the United States and European Union members. But he has the backing of Russia, China and Cuba. And counts loyalty from the military leadership, electoral bodies, courts and other state institutions to his advantage. Sunday's elections were held amid widespread fear the vote would be rigged, as multiple exit polls had pointed to an opposition win. On Monday, the government-controlled National Electoral Council formally declared Maduro the winner of the disputed vote, with 51% support compared with 44% for his main opposition challenger, Edmundo Gonzalez. An ebullient Maduro celebrated his victory by declaring that he will not tolerate any violence in the aftermath of election results.
I can say in front of the people of Venezuela and the world, I am President Nicholas Maduro Mora, re-elected President of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. I will defend our democracy, our law and our people. I tell you, people of Venezuela, the opposition tried to stop the electoral result announcement. They tried to rob electoral centers. I didn't say anything. But in the past few days, we captured people in many states. They are convicted and have confessed, who wanted to burn electoral centers. They are convicted and have confessed. I have asked the General Attorney to have an iron hand with terrorists, with opposition protesters, with violent people. We will not allow them to create a spiral of violence.
The opposition, on the other hand, cried foul and claimed that its candidate, Edmundo González Urrutia, was the rightful winner, who had won 67% to 30%, based on tallies obtained from most of the nation's polling stations.
Edmundo González got 70% of the votes in this election, and Nicholas Maduro received 30% of the votes. This is the truth, and my dear Venezuelans, this is the Venezuelan election with the largest margin of victory in history. Congratulations, Edmundo.
Interestingly, the government has so far not shared any information beyond a national total of votes for each candidate, despite a recent pledge by Maduro to release 100% of the record. The announcement of the victory prompted thousands of Venezuelans to demonstrate in Caracas and other parts of the country this week. Where they were met by tear gas and rubber bullets fired by police. As the clamor grew for release of full tallies and for Maduro to acknowledge a González win, the leaders of Mexico, Colombia, and Brazil, traditionally friendlier with Maduro, urged the Venezuelan electoral authorities on Thursday to move ahead quickly and let itemized ballot box level results be known publicly.
It's possible that today I'll talk via phone with Brazilian President Lula da Silva and Colombian President Gustavo Petro about the stances on Venezuela. We proposed first, there must be no violence. Second, the will of Venezuelans must be respected. Third, the evidence, the vote tallies need to be presented. Fourth, there should be no intervention.
On the same day, the opposition leader, Maria Corina Machado, claiming to be in hiding, urged Venezuelans to take to the streets on Saturday to protest against Maduro's re-election. Strongly denying electoral fraud, Maduro said the opposition has instigated a coup by disputing the result. He has previously accused foreign governments of interfering in the election. At a time when both parties are accusing each other of electoral fraud, will Venezuela see a peaceful transition in accordance with its electoral law and the wishes of its people?
And with that's a wrap on this edition of World at War. And if you want to reach out to me with any comments, feedback or suggestions, please feel free to do so on the ID that you're seeing on your screens. I'm your host, Mohammed Saleh, and I'll see you again next week.